What's up? It's your boy ET. Look, if you're looking to or you got to raise the bar on your marriage, you gotta click the link and get into Married into Crazy, y'all. I'm telling you, this coaching is gonna take your relationship to another level. Now look, you already know you need to raise the bar. You know that already. So stop thinking or overthinking. Click that link, and Marriage into Crazy is gonna take you and your spouse to marital bliss. Now you know. Click the button. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
And we want to thank all the listeners that have come back to listen to our brand of crazy. For those of you that are new, maybe it's your first time listening to the Married into Crazy podcast. When we say crazy, it's not that negative connotation or something, really outlandish. When we say crazy,
sometimes it is, but okay.
For those of you watching YouTube right now, you know that if you've noticed, every time when I mention that, she looks at me when she says, sometimes it is.
Because I'm talking to you, so I just like to address you.
Okay. That's her story, and she's sticking to it.
Always. Yep.
Well, crazy is actually an acronym.
Yep.
What does it stand for?
Compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding.
And those are the 5 pillars upon which we always teach and work with our clients on, and have these conversations. And in the midst of having these conversations that take place on a weekly basis, and it's been going like that since August of 2018. Every single week we bring you either topics of conversation, or we bring you experts in a variety of different topics that affect relationships. Mm-hmm. So if it's not a topic that we're talking about or introducing you to another couple, we're trying to bring you the best of the best when it comes to just insight, when it comes to some of the things that we deal with as couples. And this evening, we were actually bringing you another expert. We actually have Michelle Byrd with us this evening, who is an incredible individual that I feel immensely blessed to be able to invite onto the podcast. How are you doing this evening?
I am good. I am doing really good. And I am honored, by the way, to have you ask me to do this. So, yeah, I'm good.
Well, the honor's all ours. And I never, so one knock, if there is one about us, we don't do the whole, send us your bio and give us we never do that with any of our guests. But I put you on the spot and say, tell us about yourself. What is it that you do? Who are you?
Okay, I will tell you about myself. I am a licensed professional counselor. I've done this work in so many areas. I started out as a youth minister, working in the church. My love for children having children sent me to schools, and how I work with families led me into school counseling for 18 years, and then wanting to do this on a different scale. So I am a therapist, and I've done suicidal ideation assessments for teenagers and adults, little people too, because they too have depression and feel like they want to commit suicide. So I've done that. It was a burnout work, but it was a really joyous work to do, to be able to work with people and help them out in that area. So I've done this work for a long time, even before getting the professional status, if you will, to do this work. I've been doing it a really long time. So that is who I am. I do workshops for women, talking about, and it shifts as people shift, right? Empowerment workshops for women. And when I talk about depression and stress and all of that women have, uplifting, working into getting into speaking more speaking engagements. But I mean, like I say women, and you might hear me reference women, but I work with all people. So I work in a private group practice right now. So
that's awesome. And it's a calling, right?
It is.
It is a calling. You've been doing this a very long time. And it's funny. So as we were entering the holiday season, Snooks and I have been it seems like every year around this time, we get a little out of sync. And she's laughing because she thinks I always blame her for it because she's spending all kinds of money right now.
That's probably the top 5, but okay.
No, but we recognize that there's always something in the air. Of course, it's a joyous time. It's a time that, for reflection. It's a time to celebrate the, depending upon your spiritual persuasion, but the birth of Christ. And there's so many different things, but there's always an air of depression.
So let me just kind of jump in right quick. So we've talked before, we've made mention before that on the podcast that I have suffered with depression for a very long time. And it's funny because when Levy and I first got married, he didn't really understand. Well, I should say I didn't really understand that it was really depression, kind of like to the extent that he was like, why are you sad? I don't know why you're sad, why, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm always sad. I've been sad as a child. So it was just regular, normal for me. And for him, it just was not. And he was like, that's not normal. And I think that was probably one of our biggest fights because when he said that's not normal, I got very offended by it. And I was like, how are you going to tell me it's not normal? It's always been normal. This is who I am, blah, blah, blah. But as we've come and grown, you know, there are certain times of the year that I started picking up on when I'm a little bit more sad than normal, And one day, was a couple weeks ago, I think it was, I woke up and I always call it my blanket. I was like, I'm heavy because when I say I got my blanket on, he understands what I'm saying. So I love holiday seasons, my favorite time of the year, but it's also probably one of the saddest times of the year for me. And I'm looking out the window and I'm just like thinking about people who may be sad by themselves or they don't have that partner who is understanding. And so we started just kind of talking about it. It's like, you know what? It's probably a good subject to talk about on the podcast because there are so many people who are suffering in silence and probably alone and don't know how to deal with it, or they have a spouse that's like, what am I supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And want to wish it away for you.
Right. And that's what I told her. She's like, well, what can we do? And I was like, well, I know the perfect person
He did
to reach out to see if she's available to come on the show. And
Yeah.
we'd love for you to kind of just really talk to us, share with us, and help us understand, what is it that we're going through? Because some people, again, the definition of depression, the different things, people just have a different connotation of it. And how can we work through it or develop a plan to identify it and just rise above it if possible at all?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to understand that it is a medical condition, right? So, major depressive disorder is a medical condition and it is an imbalance of hormones, right? And so you have, and I taught this to teenagers too. It's kind of God's segue into me doing this. Every year I would teach this. You have what we call like the small S.A.D, and then you have the capital S, or the small d depressed and the capital D depressed. And the small d depressed is when, it's situational, something comes up and it makes you extremely sad, maybe sadder than you would normally be, right? But then there's this big D depression that almost feel like you cannot, that you can't, it is no feel like you cannot just dig yourself out of, right? It's a heaviness. And that's when it is something that I would say to seek medical attention for. And there's plenty of reasons, especially for women, why this occurs, right? And so I heard you say, like, I've been dealing with this since I was a child. Family history matters. And I say this to women, and it's, I say it lightly, but it's not light, right? Where we're dealing with hormones from the age of about 8 until we leave here. We just are. There's different phases. There is puberty, and then there's premenstrual, and then there's menstrual, and then there's postmenstrual, and then we have children, and then there's postpartum, and our bodies are always ever hormonally going through different phases. And then just when you think you've gotten over the hump, then there's premenopause, then menopause, then postmenopause. So our hormones never really take a break. We never really get a break. And so being able to, it takes patience too, being able to work with a physician, a doctor, a psychiatrist, right? Because sometimes we have to take medication. And I'm sure we'll get into how to manage it. Yeah, but it's depending on where you live, how much sun are you getting? Where I live, we don't get sun that often at all. And it's daylight, but it's not always sunlight, right? And so vitamin D plays a part, right? And then we have things like PCOS, that's polycystic ovary syndrome, and whatever else could be going on with our bodies that can cause depression too. So it's different variables that can be going on that is the cause of. And then I know I said this in the beginning, but I'll say it again. And then hereditary, like, is there a history of depression in the family? Yeah. So there's a variety of why this is occurring. And it's on a person by person basis. So really staying in tune with your doctor, working with your doctor, working with a psychiatrist for medication if that's what's needed. We can get into the stigma of all of that too. But it is what it is, because if I was to have a hereditary heart condition, I probably wouldn't hesitate to take a pill because I want to live, right? And this is the example I give people. Well, your brain is an organ, and it is just as important as the heart. And it is still life or death, literally. That's yeah.
It's funny. I'm glad you said that, because what you just said right now floored me. We had a conversation over dinner. And where were we? Chicago? Where were we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to remember. Where was I?
Who are you talking to?
And no, so Michelle and I were at dinner, and you used that analogy of, if I had a challenge with any of my other organs, I would easily take that medication or whatever was prescribed, or go see a doctor to see it. But the most important organ that we have is our brain, but we don't want to go see or have anybody diagnose us for that. And it's the one organ that controls every other organ.
Yes.
That floored me.
Yeah.
And I still remember that conversation. You said something that I'm really curious about. We know that a large portion of our demographic that we speak to or that tunes into us are people of color. Mm-hmm. And there's a stigma. You talked about family history.
Yeah.
There's a stigma attached to mental health and dealing with depression. You said, how do you know if your mom, like Snook said, I've always been this way, this, that, and the other. And then maybe her mom, but nobody, I doubt that very few of us actually have a diagnosis of depression.
Or even sit down and have a conversation about it. I shared this with someone before. I remember having a conversation, or kind of came up in, I don't even know what we were doing, but I made a statement to my aunt that I was sad. And she was like, girl, what you sad for? You got food, blah, 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 whatever. You can't be telling your mom you're sad because she got so much other stuff to worry about. So it's like, now I became shamed that I was sad. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, okay. So note to self, don't say that ever again, Yeah. But it did teach me that when I have kids, when I was younger, when I have kids, I want them to feel free to express that they are sad. So I never told my mom until I was an adult. And my mom was kind of floored. Like, why would you not feel like you could come and talk to me about, And I was like, well, because you got other things she's like, I'm your mom, first of all, So she kind of read it read me. But I
Yeah.
remember I was like, so I'm going to make sure that my kids, our kids, know that if you're feeling some kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
say something, you know. So
How do we
Absolutely.
have those supportive conversations? If somebody talks about, respectfully, someone says, well, I'm sad, or somebody's repeatedly, like, they have these moments where there's a cycle or something where there's sadness. And how do we have supportive conversations, whether it be, to a friend or a spouse,
Mm-hmm.
without marginalizing how they feel?
First letting them know that you are there for them, right? That you are open, that this is a safe space to have a conversation about that. And the reason that we don't, or I can say the response of your aunt is probably anxiety about if that gets out, now we got to figure out how to deal with that. And we don't know how, right? Or you being labeled as something like, our parents were, I remember, having my son, he's in his 30s now, but growing up, he's ADHD. And that wasn't something people wanted to talk about, right? Because they didn't know of it. They have little knowledge, didn't know what to do with that. And so you kind of in this cycle where you feel like you're going crazy because like, I know I see what I see and I know that this needs to be attended to, but nobody else understands, so giving the person the space, the safe space to be able to talk about it and being honest about it if you don't know what to do or what to say, and then seeking out assistance to figure out what to do and how to help the person, right? I had a call where a gentleman had no idea, like his doing something about it right away meant helping this person make an appointment. No, get in your car and take him to the hospital. And the response was like, I know he's probably going to be mad at me. That's another thing. Like we're taught to manage other people's emotions. So I don't want someone upset with me. Our response has everything to do with how we were brought up, what our past experience is. That's where the response is coming from, right? Your aunt's response was coming from her past experience or what she's taught and how to handle that or not, right? So just providing a safe space and listening to them. And people who suffer from depression sometimes really don't want to hear what you got to say. But if it's positive, say it anyway. They'll thank you later. Just know that they don't, that you're not going to get like, oh my God, thank you for being so supportive. You're not going to get that response.
Okay.
You might after the fact though, right? You just continue to check. And I have a daughter who is clinically, we call it clinically depressed. But I also know she's 30, and I also know she has a lot of health things, female health things that's going on that for me, I know contributes to this, right? So helping the person, helping your wife to kind of like be in tune, like what's going on with your body, like what is happening with you, do you feel it when it's starting to happen, right? Like finding a plan. You have a plan, you have a buzzword, if you will, like I have my blanket on today, right? So that's letting people around you know, here's where I am today, right? Having different plans too, depending on how heavy it feels, right? Like for my daughter, and it's always around this time that it's heaviest, and I think it's the season. So it's called seasonal affective disorder. It's the season when you feel the heaviest, and for her, we just had a bout with it, right? And today she's gone out to dinner with a friend, and it's like hallelujah, she can go out to dinner, right? But before she knows her body, and she's going through a change in medication, and she can say like, that medicine has me feeling really heavier than I would normally feel. And so we're in the process of switching things around, but it's because she knows her body that she knows what's happening. So know when it's occurring, know what to ask for. I would say to you, Snooks, know what to ask for, what you need. We have safe words, if you will, right? I'm not okay, or, I need your assistance. And sometimes what that might mean is just being in her presence, This time around, it meant not, she's lives in our garden apartment. Well, this time around, it meant not sleeping down there and sleeping upstairs on the couch. It's something about the dark, and it's something about being beneath the earth, if you will. Something about being down there in this hole. Doesn't feel like a hole when you're okay, but when she's not okay, that's what it feels like. So it's like, okay, you sleep on the couch, then you can, we can keep an eye on you. We can get you what you need. You can ask for what you need. Because from what I understand, and I have not experienced it to this degree myself, I have experienced depression, but not to this degree, it physically hurts. I hear it physically hurts. And it's frustrating because you want to do something about it. You wish that you could wish yourself out of it, right? So just kind of knowing, like, what is it that you need? How do I know you're not okay is a good question, right? How do I know you're not okay?
I like that. I like that. I wasn't going to go down this path, but you said a few things that, what did you call it? Seasonal
Affective disorder, SAD. And it's kind of like the winter blues part of depression.
Seasonal affective disorder. And it's interesting that now, you've taken my mind down a completely different path. Here's the thing. We wanted you to come on, to talk about how people deal with depression around this time. And that's what it is, right? This whole sad scenario. But as you were talking, it dawned on me that it was this time that we have a godson that we lost in the beginning of December a few years back. 21 years old, took his life. One of the things he talked about, he had PTSD from military, and he talked about the pain that he felt, but he was the most joyous person to be around. When there was a family function or whatever, you would never know. Your daughter comes across as being, to me, very blessed to have you in her life, to have you not just as a mother, but to have you in her life, to where you could almost build a village, a team.
Yes. Yeah.
Around her. How does someone, I don't want to say identify, but how does someone in this time frame be able to be there for somebody when, like in our case, when our godson, who just seemed jovial when the family was around, was always, it's like that. There was a pharmaceutical commercial that
Cialis.
No, Cialis is for ED, babe.
Oh.
I was like, Cialis. Okay, maybe there's a connection here.
I guess I'm depressed. Yeah, you are depressed when you're not getting none. But no,
the one with the fan.
It was a face, right? Yeah, they put on there was I can't remember what it was, but it was for depression. I don't remember which company or the drug, but people walked around with a mask on that had a happy face.
Yeah.
And I just feel like so many of us do that. How do you see behind the mask?
Well, you don't if they don't want you to. You don't if they don't want you to. People mask it really well. And I have a nephew that committed suicide in college, and some people are in denial about it, but it happened. It's a few years ago. And if they don't want you to know, you won't know. And unfortunately, you cannot stop someone from committing suicide who is dead set on that's what's going to happen. Right? When you do know, then you move, accordingly, because you do know, like, you try to help to get them some assistance. You don't worry about what you're going to look like and what they're going to think about you and all of that. You get them to assistance as soon as you possibly can. That might mean an intervention with people that they really love. So the person I talked to today, I'm like, well, who's this person closest to? He lives with mom, but mom's a trigger. Okay, who else is this person closest to? Well, he has someone, it's like a god mom, and she's literally seconds away. Okay, then call her, right? Because then maybe she can talk to this person and get him to go in. the opportunity, don't want to say lost the opportunity, the window of opportunity, but they were together and the person was in a almost kind of catatonic state where it's like, it was almost kind of like he wasn't there, right? And that would have been a really good opportunity to drive him straight to the hospital. He didn't know what to do. He ended up like being able to talk with him and talk him down or whatever. And so now you at this point in the window where it's just like, no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. Right. So it's like, okay, but this just happened this weekend. So call somebody that's really close to, that can talk with them, that can get him where he needs to be. So when move accordingly, in that way, get the assistance. Don't worry about them being upset with you, because they will be. Because depression says, this is where I am, this is where I'm going to be, leave me alone. So if you didn't know, and if there were even, because once a person passes away, you think, oh, wow, that was happening, or that was happening. And if there's, if that didn't occur for you, where you could say, oh, I remember when that was happening, then probably was masking it very well. And there was no way for you to know, because he didn't want you to know.
I hope that as people are listening right now, they're being introspective. They're thinking about, maybe their periods, their bouts with sadness and things they're going through, and they're thinking about the people that are around them and that they see. When we're talking about, because Christmas is right around the corner.
Yes.
And we're talking about SAD, and that seasonal affective disorder. How does someone, if they recognize, if somebody's listening right now and they think, oh, you know what, I do feel this way this time of year, or there's a period that they recognize that's cyclical or cyclical, that where it comes about. Are you gonna laugh at me because I said cyclical?
No. I didn't.
And no, but if they recognize that, what are some things that we can do if all of a sudden we become aware that there might be? What steps would you recommend for someone to take if you start to question like your level of depression?
Right. If your own level of depression, or someone else's, like your own self, you recognize that, there's a cycle. I noticed at this time, I'm sadder than most of the year, or it's heavier. Reach out to your support system. Definitely reach out to your support system. And some of us have people who are not as supportive as we would like for them to be. I get that. So, whomever that is, it could be friends. It doesn't have to necessarily be family, if family would not understand or support in a way that is advantageous, because sometimes our support's not the support that the person needs. Right. So reach out to your support system. Go see a therapist, right? At the very least, like sometimes people are embarrassed, they don't want to talk about it. Get a mental health therapist. For sure, get a mental health therapist so that they can kind of talk you through. This is also a time when people are grieving, like you say, your loved one. It was this time of year, or if it's not this time of year, this is the time of year that you reminisce on it, right? My daughter had a friend who just kind of passed away, a heart condition he didn't know he had, and that was in April. But it's she's been able to kind of fight it off, and now it's hitting hard. Like he's literally gone. And it was nothing that anybody could have expected. So this is the time everybody's like being really jolly, and this is Christmas time, and other people are dreading it coming. Right. I say this to teachers. Not every kid in your class has a joyous story to tell when they get back to school for the holiday. It's a living hell at home, and school is their safe space. Right. So when you're saying like, oh, share with us all the wonderful things, you got some kids like, it's nothing wonderful about that season for me. And that's true for people that are suffering with depression. So I would say to make sure checking in, but I think the biggest thing is preventive measures, doing things all year long that are healthy for you. And it is so important. Like, it is health, it is rest, It's exercise. It's all of these cliche-ish things that people might say that you really have to hone into doing every single day. And I tell some of my clients, I explain it this way. It is as important as breathing to get into a habit of fortifying yourself with nutritious meals, being very particular about what you put into your mouth. Sugars are horrible. About your being strict about your diet, what you're, I talked about this podcast I was just looking at, this live, it was on LinkedIn, about foods and our kids and how their moods change after eating flaming hots. And now the school day is horrible. It matters what you put in your body. It really does matter. And then you notice, I don't know if you notice, Nooks, that when you start to feel this way, you can go back into the last couple of weeks and like, I didn't do this and I haven't done that and I haven't been doing that. Right. And so it's like everything that you do to take care of yourself will start to dissipate. Like you stop doing those things. Well, I haven't taken vitamins. I haven't had my smoothies, or I haven't exercised in 2 weeks. But you don't recognize it when you're not doing, like, you don't recognize that that's what's happening until you're here. And then you think back. So what a person could do who is witnessing this is say like, hey, that's what I do. Have you had your smoothie today? Because I know that's healthy for her. That, have you taken your meds today? Like, did you get your vitamin D check? That's a really big source. The vitamin D levels. I had no idea that you could be so vitamin D deficient. I went to, just doing a blood workup about 10 years ago, just doing blood workup. It was a physical, went to the doctor, and my vitamin D level was so deficient. The lady called me on my job. What? She said, you need to go on your lunch and get this vitamin D. Whatever the levels are supposed to be, I was a negative 100 something. Like, I was really bad.
Wow.
She's like, you all but have no vitamin D. Have you been like really tired lately? Have you been feeling depressed? Have you been? And I was like, oh, but I had a very stressful job. So I just thought it was the job. And, we need 1,000 to 2,000 IUs a day. This lady had given me a 50,000 IU pill.
Wow. That's crazy.
Wow.
Wow.
And so, and this can vary depending upon where you live, right? You said
it absolutely varies. Because I love the sun. So if I lived in sunny California, if it was really sunny, because I understand that some parts of it is not really sunny.
Like, it's not sunny right now.
It's sunny right now, I'll tell you that.
I would be in this because I love the sun. And in the Midwest, I think could be worse. I don't have any stats to support that, but I know that we get less sun than West Coast. So yeah, depending on where you live, depending on your family history, yes, we need vitamin E, and vitamin D, sorry. And I did that, ended up doing that twice. And it's like, oh, okay. And so then I kind of lackadaisical took the vitamins, and took it here and there, maybe 2 days a week. And then she tested me again and she was like, really? What I got to tell you for you continue? Like, no, this is serious, because not only can you feel depression if you are vitamin D deficient, it also, and forgive me, I don't know all the areas, but it can negatively affect organs and your health. And she was like, no, really. And I haven't missed a day since. I'm like a little old lady. I got the little pill thing. And it doesn't have real pills, if you will. It has all my supplements. And every single day I am taking them. Every single day. And the vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin B, like I take them every single day, because I take that serious. But what it taught me was, through my own experience, wow, I need to share this with other people. You could be deficient in your vitamin D. Get it checked out. The first thing I say is get your levels checked out. If your levels are checks out fine, go to a psychiatrist. You might need some medication, and it is okay. Because what they will do is they're going to give you the very lowest dosage first and try to see, and be patient with the process, and it will make you feel better. Yeah. And know your body, advocate for yourself. So, going back to the things like making sure you're exercising, making sure you're eating properly, making sure you are resting. That is so important. That is so important. And making sure you're doing that all year long, because it's almost kind of like you're building up because you know this time is coming.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because a lot of us are reactive. I don't want to,
Yes.
I'm not going to fix, I'm not going to do something until it needs to be fixed. Why would I change the oil when I know I have oil in the car? Well, we're
Yeah.
supposed to do it periodically after X amount of time, right? It's preventive maintenance, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I can speak for myself, and I consider myself a student of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we have a tendency not to want to fix something until we deem it's broken enough. We will duct tape.
Right. Yes.
It's broken. Well, it's not really broke. Let me slap some tape over it on that. And if the Scotch tape don't work, let me put some duct tape. I can get some glue. Let me get some rubber bands. And then pretty soon our body, our life, our minds are jimmy rigged as opposed to working the way that God intended them to.
Absolutely. There's also things to avoid, like putting in your body: caffeine, alcohol, tobacco,
Okay, you're hurting
things
me.
to avoid.
You're hurting me.
I
I'm not a
know.
tobacco person, but you said caffeine. I got to give up my
Yeah.
coffee.
Yes. Caffeine is a great contributor to depression and anxiety. And there's different types of caffeine, right? The coffee caffeine is what I'm talking about, because there's like green tea. There's caffeine in green tea that is very different and affects you very differently than coffee. But yeah, oh my gosh.
You're saying something. You're speaking to somebody right now. Like, wait, hold on. Because my first thought right now was like, but wait, aren't you supposed to drink coffee if you want to feel up? And I think I know in the moment I confused energy with actually having like a pick me up,
Yeah.
and that's interesting. So I think a lot of people, if they're feeling down, they think, oh, let me just get a cup of coffee and I'll feel better.
Yes. But there's a major crash that comes with that, and interferes with the nervous system. And and my health coach Rochelle T. Parks would say, give the body what it needs to thrive, and it will. So if you need a jolt, instead of the quick fix with coffee, do the necessary things you need to do to make sure that you have the energy. Like, are you vitamin B deficient? Like, that provides energy. So we're like putting the band-aids on instead of getting a whole panel of blood work done to see what's really happening, so I can figure this out. And then if it's none of that, if it's not medical, then okay, what are you not doing? Right? That you should be doing, that you should be giving your body to make sure that you don't have that. Well, a lot of people go to bed at a time that is not advantageous to them and wake up in a short amount of time, and then they need coffee. Right? They need coffee because they didn't get enough rest. And it's a serious crash. For me personally, I know it's a serious crash with coffee. And I am in a profession where I cannot afford to be lethargic when I am helping people process their emotions and thoughts.
Wow.
So caffeine is just a no-go. Yeah.
So I interrupted you. So you were saying things to avoid: caffeine, sugar, tobacco,
Alcohol.
I was leaving that out on purpose. Okay. Alcohol.
Yes.
Anything else on your list that you should call out that you feel?
And so one of the things I have here is, if you find you can't keep up with your schedule, it might mean you need to reevaluate and reduce some of your commitments instead of having these things to ramp you up and give you energy. What else do you need to tweak in your commitments? All right. Instead of having 5 workshops that day, have 3 and you won't need coffee or whatever you're using it for. Right. I understand that if I go out and I have a good time and I have more than one drink, or I have red wine or whatever, I understand that I'm going to be anxious in my sleep. I can feel it. It's like, it doesn't wake me up totally, but I feel myself coming out of this deep REM, and I'm in a light sleep, but I can feel it. I'm laying there and I'm going through my brain in my sleep. Why am I anxious? What did I do? Da, 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 da. Oh, I had wine last night. Like I already know. I already know, because there's nothing else on this planet for me to be anxious about. So I had to be the wine.
Wow, you're preaching now.
Yeah.
You have such a wealth of knowledge, and there's, I want everybody to know, like you said, you're in private practice, right?
I'm in a group practice,
Group practice.
not solo.
Okay.
Solo would be me alone, but I work with a group. It's about, started out being like maybe 5 or 7 of us, and now it's about 15 of us that work together in a group practice. A friend of my own. So,
Are you
yeah.
taking on new clients?
So I do have a wait list. I am licensed in the state of Illinois only. I do have a wait list. And I work with Chicago Compass Counseling, and it's chicagocompasscounseling.com is where people can find me in Psychology Today. But I do have a wait list because people are coming in full effect. Like people need, like we're all booked to capacity. I'm actually probably would be considered overbooked. Right, because I can start at 9 and I don't finish till 6. And I have to, like, clients are 55 minutes. I literally have to take the 5 minutes, run up and down the stairs, go to the restroom, drink some water, whatever, get back. Okay, the next one. So I am more booked today than I probably ever been.
That speaks to me. That speaks to me in a big way, because in two, I'm not gonna keep you much longer because I know we promised we wouldn't hold you too long.
No, you're good. I'm enjoying this conversation.
But and so we're very transparent, with things that are happening in our lives. It's like people have been through, like our listeners have gone through the challenges we had when we lost Isaiah. Our grandson's name is Isaiah. He's named after our godson.
Okay. I was going to say, wait a minute, you lost Isaiah, because I know that your grandson name is Isaiah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was named specifically after
Okay.
Our Isaiah.
The original Isaiah.
Yeah.
Because he actually took his life on our son's birthday. And they were very close. And so it's and actually our son had talked him out of it a couple of times.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to us, we found out a lot after the fact.
Right. Yeah.
But the reason why I bring that up is because we're in the process of gaining guardianship of our temporary guardianship of our grandson. There's things that we have to actually go through, in that process. And because of that, and adding a new life to the house and all that, I recommended that we as a family go through counseling.
Absolutely.
But I can't get a counselor because everyone is booked. And and we're getting referred, and then the referrals, like, oh, there's a wait list. Everyone, and it's the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is because I think it really speaks to the need.
Yes.
Many people are starting to recognize post-COVID. Many of us are recognizing that there's challenges, there's things that we need to work through.
Absolutely.
I feel like you said, kind of post-COVID, people are really taking mental health more serious.
Yes.
Before it was the stigma, like you were saying, about being crazy. We're just like, oh, he crazy, or she just crazy, or whatever. But now it actually means something. We can point out and say, well, this is happening, that's happening, this is happening, and these are the things that are weighing this person down. And everyone doesn't have the mental capacity to deal with some of the things that other people deal with. And I had to say that to someone that was very close to me. He's like, well, that doesn't make sense, because when that happens to me, I blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, stop right there. You're not that person.
You're not that person.
So you should not expect that person to be just like you or act the same way that you do. Everyone has different triggers, or we gave you grace when you were going through your stuff, but I think we sometimes forget that.
Yeah.
And we just, all they need to do is, that's my favorite. oh, all they need to do is, it's like, don't, if you say all they need one more
Yeah,
time.
because that so minimizes what they are going through. And if you're saying that to the person that needs the assistance, you are confirming what they're feeling about,
Exactly.
you know, not being worthy, not nobody cares, all those negative things that come to their mind. And quite frankly, if you are not in a space to be able to do anything different, like kindly exit stage left. Like you could not participate.
Right.
You get to do that, right? And let somebody else participate with this person who's going to be helpful, because that's not helpful
Right.
at all. At
Right.
all. Yeah, that's not helpful at all. I think the best thing I can say is to don't give up. Do not give up. Keep looking for a family therapist. Keep reminding them that you're on the wait list. Keep checking in. Yeah, I would say not to give up. Just like you wouldn't give up if you needed a heart specialist. You would not give up. You would be like, oh, he can't do it? Okay. Do you have any referrals? Okay, let me find out if this person can do whatever. Do not give up. Keep like plugging away at it, because something will open up for your family. And you don't, it might not be in the form of or the place that you think it should be, or what have you. So I know I was looking for a couples therapist, and just tried all kind of people, right? And then someone gave me two people, and so I was trying to make a particular out of the two, trying to make this particular person like fit. And I'm just looking, I was like, oh no, I don't know if that's going to be a good fit. And I don't know why I wasn't looking at the other person as diligently as I was looking at this person. And then all of a sudden, I go into my insurance and I type the names in, and the person that I wasn't like really looking into diligently pops up. It's the perfect person for us.
Right.
I have no idea why I did not.
Hmm.
First of all, I was like, well, it can't be a man, because I'm just making an assumption, because I made an assumption. It can't be a man. He don't want a man telling him what to do. Couldn't find any women. And then this person gave me two men, and it was like, okay, well, maybe, you know, I'm just going to look at this one. And I can't tell you right now why I differentiated between the two. But the person that I did not look at all, I put the insurance in, like, okay, let me see. You know, we were looking for a Black therapist, obviously. And this person popped right up. And I was like, why wasn't I not looking at them both? She sent both of them to me.
Right.
So it may not show up in the way that you think, or may not be the person you think. So just keep looking. Don't give up searching, because something will open up. Right? God knows that is the desire that you want for your family, is to have family therapy. So something's going to open up.
I like that. I hope everyone's listening, because I think there's a message in there for all of you that are listening right now. And that is that if any of this conversation resonated with you, any piece of it, investigate it.
Absolutely.
And don't give up.
Don't give up.
And don't be ashamed either of feeling the way that of having those feelings that, you know, there may be, okay, maybe there is something, I want to say something wrong with me, but maybe something's not right. You know, there's a way of saying,
Yes,
I'm feeling a certain kind of way, to where it's not a negative knock against ourselves, or because I think that that's one of the that's a placeholder for a lot of people. Like, I'm not finna, because I ain't nothing wrong with me, and I'm, you know, we
and you're
don't
right.
really
There's
want
nothing
to
wrong with you.
face that there I might not be feeling
Exactly.
a certain type of way. I'm feeling a little subpar today, you know. So we make sure that we say we allow grace, but we also need to make sure we're giving grace to ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We don't, you know, that's a negative connotation. It's nothing wrong with me. And you're right. There is nothing wrong with you, but you don't feel okay. It's okay not to be okay, and say, I am just not okay. I'm not okay. And that's fine. And then, you know, proceed to do something about that, and you might not know who to call, or, you know, I call your PCP. That is the quickest way. You get into an appointment, Somebody might say, well, I can't get into a therapist for 4 months. Okay, well, if you go into your PCP, that is part of the normal exam, if you will. One of the questions they ask, how you feeling? They're not asking you how your physical health is, actually. They're asking how your mental health is. How are you feeling? Have you been really tired lately? Whatever the questions are that they ask, you can say, like, I've been feeling down, or I've been feeling this, or I've been feeling that. And they can give you something. And then you schedule something with a psychiatrist, right? And they're definitely going to give you the lowest dosage, because psychiatry is not their area, but they're still doctors. Right. And it's okay. And if you are ashamed of having to take medication and all that, well, who got to know what you're taking? Nobody knows what you're taking unless you tell them.
Right.
Nobody knows you're seeing a psychiatrist unless you tell them. Nobody even knows you're seeing a therapist unless you tell them. So if you're ashamed of that, or if that's stigma in your family, you don't have to tell them. My mother-in-law's been taking a nerve pill. I've been married 32 years. We've been together 36 years. As long as I've known her, she's taken a nerve pill. I today understand what that is. She's been on anxiety medication for as long as I've known her. But they say nerve pills. They don't say, right? And they only say that to people that are close to them. I had to take my nerve pill, or whatever, right? Nobody has to know your business.
Right.
So for you to feel outed, or an outsider, or othered, or somebody's gonna look at me really weird. Well, they can't look at you if you don't give them the information about you. Just don't tell nobody.
Right.
Facts. This has been amazing. I so value your time. So you said something earlier where, we know that you're a therapist. You had also said that you have a health coach, Rochelle T. Parks. So you're a therapist that has a coach.
And a therapist.
So I'm thinking, okay, so that speaks. We're coaches, and we are seeking, a therapist for our family. And I'm saying all this right now because people, you need to reach out. These are resources. Michelle is a resource that can be used. How can people utilize you as a resource? I know that you said that you're in private practice, but you've got a waiting list. Can you say the website, and I'm going to put it in the show notes as well, of your group? Is your group closed, or are your partners?
No, the group is not closed. The group is not closed. And our intake person reaches out periodically. Like the other day, she reached out and said, "Hey, I have like 5 people on the wait list. Anybody open yet?" And so it's not like you're like stuck on this wait list and you're just there and you're in the abyss and nobody thinks about you anymore. She's always checking to see did you terminate a client? And, did you lose a client? Are you ready to take another client? But you can also, ask for me by name, right? You can call in and ask for somebody. You can also ask for me by name, and she'll let you know if, and then I don't wait until like, oh, I have 10 slots available. If I have 1 slot available, I will say, hey, yeah, I can take a person. I'm on Psychology Today under Michelle Byrd. Our website is www.chicagocompasscounseling.com. So I'm in that group. I'm on Facebook, Michelle Byrd. I'm on Instagram, Mrs. Byrd LPC. You can find me. I'm Michelle D. Byrd at Gmail if you want to email me, because I might not be able to take someone on as an ongoing client at the moment. But like I told you earlier today, that I'll talk someone through knowing what to do. Like I can be available to have a conversation, even if I'm not available to be your indefinite therapist.
Right.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put it out there. God put it on my spirit that, as you can tell, as articulate as she is, as knowledgeable as she is, Michelle Byrd is available for speaking engagements.
I am. That is the part of my passion that I'd like to see take off a little more. I am. I do, I've done women's engagements and things like that. I was slotted to do a retreat. They ended up not doing it or whatever, but yeah, I am.
So let's do that. Let's reach out. If you have interest and need, and I'm telling you right now, we all have that need. to have somebody like Michelle come speak to a group, whether it's a women's group, couples, teenagers, youth. You've heard her
Oh my gosh.
story. She can do it all. Let's get her in front of the right people to make a difference, to be impactful.
Yeah.
So check the show notes. All of those handles will be in there. Is there anything else in parting that you would want to say to the audience that's listening?
In today's day and age, you do not have to suffer in silence. Please reach out. And if you don't know who to reach out to, as far as like professional, then reach out to a friend, a support system, Married into Crazy. All right. Reach out. Do not suffer in silence. You don't have to. Not everybody has the same ideas about, oh, this is crazy, or you're going to be a burden. I think that we have so much awareness out there now that people we're changing our tune about how we respond to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this alone. You do not have to do this alone.
There you have it. You do not have to do this alone. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Eternally
I appreciate you.
Yes,
Yep.
definitely.
Likewise. Well, like we always say, until the next time,
Be blessed.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.